Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Angel Storm. Thank you so much for joining me, for tuning in to my video today. I am talking to you about a topic that came from one of the little quotes that I post every day again. This quote said, "Out of all the enemies that you'll ever have, you will be the worst." And somebody had asked me if I would do a video on how to stop being your own worst enemy, so here I am to do that. So the context that I'm writing this in can really be applied to pretty much every area of life, but for the sake of this video, I'll just apply this to your dealings with the narcissist. A couple of weeks ago, I did 2 videos, so 2 weeks in a row I did a live video, each week, on your mindset. One was called The Manifold Mind, which is the name of my coaching company, and the other one is called The Minimum Mind. And in that I describe the mindsets that most people have when it comes to dealing with a narcissist. When they start out, a lot of people will have this minimum mind. In other words, you think the way that the narcissist wants you to think. So if the narcissist is pushing you down a certain path, whether that's in court or just in your personal life with them, again, you could have a boss who's a narcissist or a parent who's a narcissist. You could have anybody in your life who's a narcissist. Doesn't necessarily need to be your spouse or a co-parent to your children. But let's say you're in court with a narcissist, or they're trying to make the case turn out in a certain way. They try to start getting you to think that their way is the only way, right? And before you know it, you could even start thinking that. Maybe some of you are thinking that now, like, I'll never be free of my mom who's a narcissist, or I could never leave my husband, right? These are pathways that we start thinking down, and then we start creating the reality around that thought. How is this you being your own worst enemy? Because the things that are happening on the outside of you can always change. They'll change. Your outer world will start to change when your internal world changes. But until your internal world changes, your outer world will remain the same and continue to reflect what's in your inner world. So in other words, external enemies can change at any given moment. But if you are walking around with you all day and you are telling yourself all day, this is the way that my life will go, this is the only way that my life will ever be, this is the only outcome for me, then you are replacing the abuser in your life. You are actually becoming the abuser to yourself. If you have not seen my live Instagram story, IGTV that I did with Narc Abuse TV, you can go check that out, because I did explain this in more detail. But for the sake of this video, I'll just let you know that you can't outrun yourself. There's no place on earth that you'll ever go where you're not there. And so what the narcissist tries to get you to do is to really take the place of their thoughts on your own. This is the whole point of gaslighting. This is the whole point of other narcissistic abuse tactics that they use against you, such as financial abuse, right? You'll never make money without me. You'll never have enough to support yourself without me. And then you start believing it. In fact, a lot of people who comment on my videos will say, well, I just don't have a job that would let me leave, or I can't do it because of this reason or that reason. Those thoughts were probably put in your mind by an external party, and now you've adopted them as your mindset, and you have actually taken the place of the abuser, which is the whole goal of the narcissist in the first place. I've mentioned this before, there's cycles of narcissistic abuse. And whatever cycle you're in currently at the moment with the narcissist, somebody else is in another phase of that. Narcissists never just have one supply. And in fact, what their goal is to be able to have multiple supplies who kind of stay in these holding patterns revolving around the narcissist without the narcissist actually having to do any work. So in other words, if I've trained you well enough, then you'll just stay in the cycle of abuse your own self. You will start telling your own self you're not good enough. You'll start telling your own self that if you were different, then the situation would change, right? And you'll be constantly chasing this unachievable goal because there really isn't any end to that goal. You're just going to go round and round in circles in these holding patterns that I'm talking about. So that while all of these supplies are doing their holding patterns all around the narcissist can be out getting more supplies and training them to accept this type of lifestyle and actually start abusing themselves. So this is really important to understand as the foundation of this video, right? I have another video where I talk about the manifold mind, which is that you understand that there are multiple levels to thinking, and that each of those levels holds an infinite number of outcomes, of paths for you to go down, that whatever it seems to be happening in your case or in your home or at your job or wherever you're interacting with a narcissist, you understand that those circumstances are actually providing you with an alternative pathway. They aren't closing you in, but they're actually expanding the amount of pathways that are now available to you. And this is what the manifold mind does. The manifold mind is able to see the possibilities from every problem, right? The opportunities in every obstacle. And this is not only true with a narcissist, but it is true as well with a narcissist. So this is an important part of learning how to be your best friend as opposed to your worst enemy. So if you don't understand that there's a certain part of you and your way of thinking in your mind that has been tailored to take on this abusive, self-sabotaging, toxic ways of thinking and of processing events that happen to you, then you won't be able to address it. So I say the first part of this video, all of the things I just said, I say that all so that you're aware that this is happening, that this can be going on, right? You start doubting yourself. You don't trust yourself. You think that this is always just going to be your life. You don't see another way possible. You see a way possible, but only if A, B, C, D, E, F, G are in order, right? Like until those things are in order, there's no way moving forward. That is a minimum mind, and that is becoming an enemy to yourself. You are literally abusing yourself with those ways of thinking. And on a side note too, we can actually see that this is happening in your brain. We can see through fMRI imaging that there's actually brain damage happening and occurring every time you sit in toxic rumination and you allow these your hormones and other neurochemicals to flood your bloodstream. It actually bathes your brain in toxicity. So this is extremely damaging. One of the things that I want to do through this channel is to teach people about narcissism, of course, to make them aware of it, yes, because if you aren't aware of how horrible, of how toxic, of how damaging this type of abuse is, we will continue to disregard narcissism as somebody who likes to take too many selfies, of which that is not what we are talking about. We are talking about true abuse happening. And so if you aren't willing to call out the abuse for what it is and identify it as how toxic it truly is, you're more apt to tolerate and sustain the level of abuse, thinking, oh, it'll just stay here, but that's actually never true. You get used and numb to this level of abuse. And so when this level of abuse comes, it's uncomfortable, yes, but you eventually get used to that. And I'm sure if you would look back at your relationship with the narcissist, you can see how it's progressed. So all of that being said, how do you stop doing it? How do you stop being your own worst enemy? And how do you start being a friend to yourself? This is a multiple tiered process, of course, but one of the first things, like I said, it's important that you're aware of it. If you aren't aware of it, you can't change anything. And so become aware of the thoughts that you have about yourself most often. Are they positive? Are they uplifting? Are they encouraging? Are they of the belief mindset? Are they, do you believe in yourself? Are you positive about your future? Do you say kind, encouraging words to yourself, or are they words that tear you down? If you wouldn't say some of the thoughts that you have about yourself to your child or your best friend, you shouldn't be saying them to yourself. And so you need to become aware of the kind of thoughts that you have about yourself, about your life, about your future, about your potential most often. Most people don't even realize how many toxic thoughts that they have about themselves, how often they blame themselves, how often they're taking on this guilt and thinking it's their fault for this abuse that's been occurring in their life. And so if you're not aware of the type of thoughts that you have, again, you can't change it. So I want you to become aware. Number one, become aware of the type of thoughts, the quality of thoughts that you're having about yourself, your life, your potential, your future, all of those things. Number two, develop something that will help you to stop having these thoughts. So this can be setting small reminders or alarms in your phone 7-8 times a day, every hour for 8 hours, every other hour for 12 hours, whatever it would be. And ask yourself, what am I thinking about in that moment? How am I feeling? Really start to identify the quality of thoughts that you're having throughout the day, the types of thoughts that you're having throughout the day. And then once you've done that for a while, instead of asking yourself, what am I thinking about? Or in addition to asking yourself, what am I thinking about? Start replacing or adding in a phrase about yourself. One of my favorite phrases, and I still repeat this to myself every day, it's part of the things that I confess over myself, right? These are part of my affirmations, is that I am fully equipped to handle my life now and in the future. There will never be a situation that I can't overcome. I was already created and designed to overcome that problem specifically. So I just remind myself, I'm fully equipped to handle everything that today will bring to me. Good, bad, terrible, exciting, any type of thing that comes my way, I'm fully equipped to handle it. I was literally created to handle it. And so I remind myself of those things so that I start off my day encouraged and full of faith in the I always call it abundance. It can be, but that can be I don't want to mislead anybody. Whatever you want to say. I say the abundance of the day, because I think that even if there's problems, it's an opportunity for me to grow in some way, and I'm going to receive abundance because of that situation at some point in my life. But whatever term you want to use. So start doing these things first to start becoming a friend to yourself. You put out the rules and requirements of how you want people to treat you in relationships. If I'm constantly saying negative things to myself, I will only attract people who say negative things to me, who think that my time isn't valuable, who think that they can come in and out of my life, who have no loyalty to me, who are passive aggressive towards me, who don't celebrate my achievements with me. I will be accepting those people. In fact, I would be attracting those people into my life, because that's the kind of energy that I have put into my own life. I set the tone for who I want in my life by the way I treat myself. This is the first step in understanding how to become a good friend to yourself. You will never be a good friend to other people if you aren't a good friend to yourself first. And I know, again, a lot of people are going to say, that's not true. I'm a great friend. I'm just not really that great at self-care and things like that. That isn't being a great friend. And I have a video on this already where I talk about we misconstrue words and their meanings all of the time. We often say, oh, that person's so kind and that person's so nice, but what they're actually doing is tolerating abuse. What they're actually doing is creating the space for them to be taken advantage of. And there's nothing kind about that. That's not being a good friend. That's not putting somebody else before your needs. That's not being selfless. That's the term that we want to use for that situation, but what is actually happening is that that person is giving out of their lack and not out of their overflow. And when you take from somebody in that state, what you're receiving is not pure, it's not fulfilling, and in fact, it's enabling that person to continue to damage and abuse themselves. So nothing about that is kind. Nothing about that is being a good friend. Yes, there are times when you do put your needs secondary, but that's only after you've learned how to fully and truly love yourself. Otherwise, again, you are always giving out of your lack and not out of your abundance, out of the overflow of love that you have for yourself, of the way that you were created, and honoring the way that other people are created. You can't do that to somebody that you haven't already looked at the person in the mirror and done that for that person first. So I hope that this video has helped you. I hope I've given you some ways to understand what being your own worst enemy looks like, how that even comes about, and then of course how to stop it. And you guys, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel below and then turn on the little bell so that you're notified whenever I upload a new video to this channel.